Every fisherman dreams of that one catch, the one that defines a lifetime. The story you're about to hear sounds impossible, like something out of legend, yet every word of it is true. It's the story of an ordinary man, an ordinary day, and a fish so massive that it would rewrite the record books and inspire generations of anglers for nearly a century. It began on a humid June morning in 1932, deep in rural Georgia. Back then, fishing wasn't a sport for fame or trophies. It was survival, a way to feed your family during hard times. George Perry was just 20 years old, a quiet farmhand who loved the water more than anything. He wasn't chasing records or dreams. That morning, he simply grabbed his cane fishing pole, a few homemade lures, and walked down to Lake Montgomery with his friend, Jack Page. Neither man knew that within hours they'd make history. The sun was still low when they reached the lake. The air was thick with mist, and the still surface of the water reflected the sky like glass. Perry and Page pushed their small wooden boat into the shallows, the oars creaking softly. They had no fancy reels, no sonar, no cameras, just patience, instinct, and the quiet hope that maybe, just maybe, they'd catch something worth bringing home. Hours passed in silence, the kind of silence only a fisherman understands. Then, suddenly, the water broke. Perry's lure vanished beneath the surface with a violent splash, and his rod bent so hard it nearly snapped in two. The line screamed through his hands as something enormous pulled with unimaginable strength. Perry braced himself, digging his boots into the boat as Jack shouted in disbelief. For minutes, maybe longer, the two men fought the beast that refused to give up. Every tug threatened to rip the line apart. Every surge of the fish's power sent waves rocking against the boat. Perry's arms burned, his heart pounded, but he refused to let go. Slowly, through sheer will and instinct, he brought it closer to the surface. Then, through the murky water, he saw the shape so large it didn't seem real. When it finally surfaced, time seemed to stop. Floating beside the boat was the largest bass they had ever seen. Its mouth was wide enough to fit a man's fist. Its scales shimmered like green armor in the sunlight. They had no net strong enough to hold it. Somehow, using nothing but their hands and sheer determination, they managed to haul the fish into the boat. The moment it landed, both men just stared, speechless. It wasn't just big, it was monstrous. A largemouth bass that looked like something out of prehistory. When they finally weighed it on an old farm scale, it came out to 22 pounds, 4 ounces, the biggest ever recorded. Perry didn't think much of it at first. He was a simple man, and that day he did what any farmer would have done. He took the fish home, fed his family, and moved on with his life. Days later, on a whim, he sent a short letter to Field and Stream magazine describing the catch. He didn't even send a photograph at first, just the measurements, the bait, and the story. The editors published it, and from that moment, George Perry's name entered fishing history. Word spread fast through the small Georgia towns and beyond. A record had been broken. People drove from miles away to see where it happened, to hear the story from the young man himself. Newspapers printed headlines calling it the biggest bass ever caught. George Perry had done something no one had done before. He turned a quiet, forgotten lake into a legend. But legends have a way of twisting over time. As the years passed, the story grew larger and the proof grew smaller. The only known photograph of Perry's fish eventually disappeared. Some said it was lost in a fire, others that it was simply misplaced. Without the photo, skeptics began to question the story. Could a fish that size really have existed in 1932? Was the scale accurate? Did anyone else truly see it? The arguments went on for decades. Scientists analyzed old reports, fishermen debated in tackle shops, and countless anglers made pilgrimages to Lake Montgomery, hoping to find another like it. Yet no one could match the feat. Perry himself never sought the spotlight. He lived a quiet life, raised a family, and continued fishing whenever he could. To him, it was never about the record. It was about the water, the peace, the patience, the connection. Then, in 2009, nearly 80 years later, another fisherman from across the world made headlines. His name was Manabu Kurita from Japan. He caught a bass weighing exactly the same 22 pounds, 4 ounces, tying Perry's record. For the first time, someone had matched the legend, yet even then, Perry's name remained sacred among anglers because he was the first, the one who proved what was possible, the fisherman who caught the impossible fish. Perry's story became the foundation of modern bass fishing. His catch inspired countless anglers, tournaments, and innovations in gear. Entire companies built their identity on the dream of catching the next world record bass. Even now, the record stands as the ultimate prize, the mythical fish that no one has yet surpassed. But the story isn't just about numbers or fame. It's about the spirit of fishing itself, the quiet persistence, the endless patience, the thrill of the unknown. Every cast carries the same hope Perry felt that morning. Every ripple on the surface could hide a legend. And that's what makes fishing more than a sport. Tease, a way of chasing something greater than ourselves, something wild, unpredictable, and pure. As time goes on, fewer people remember George Perry, the man, but every angler, whether they know it or not, carries a piece of his story each time they stand by the water. The idea that today could be the day, that somewhere beneath the surface, history waits on the end of your line. Maybe that's what makes this the greatest fishing story ever told. Not just because it's true, but because it reminds us of why we fish in the first place. It's not about trophies, photos, or fame. It's about peace. It's about patience. It's about that single heartbeat when the line tightens and you realize something incredible is about to happen. George Perry didn't go out that day looking for glory. He just wanted to catch dinner, but destiny had other plans. Nearly a century later, his record still stands, untouched, unbroken, a silent challenge to every fisherman who dares to dream big. And maybe that's the real lesson, that sometimes the greatest stories aren't written by the most famous or the most prepared. They're written by ordinary people who do something extraordinary without even realizing it. So the next time you cast your line, remember George Perry and that day on Lake Montgomery, because every ripple on the water, every quiet sunrise could be the start of your own greatest fishing story ever told.